Hello, gang, and welcome to another episode of Cocktail Hour. I'm Andy.
And I'm Sherry.
I'm Colette.
See, the gang is all here. I don't know why we keep introducing ourselves just like a thing now. I don't know.
Look, look
Look
what I got on.
Your Palm Beach shirt. Awesome. Sweet.
Yeah.
So welcome again, and I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves because it's a little scary out there right now. It really is. This COVID-19,
Ain't no joke.
it ain't no joke.
No matter what the White House said,
Oh,
it
yeah,
is
right.
no joke.
What is it? My grandmother always said, it's better to be safe than sorry. I mean, if you can stay in, stay in.
Absolutely.
The life you save may not just be your own.
Sherry, when you held up your Palm Beach sweatshirt, it just made me think of all of those idiots that are out there for spring break.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just incredible. We're going to live our lives. Well, don't mind killing a bunch of other people. It's fine. It's fine. As long as you're having fun. That's really all that matters.
And they seem to think that they can't get it.
Yeah, except for the majority of people in hospitals are in their 20s and 30s now, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's an equal opportunity encroacher. That's for damn sure. I heard our governor closed the beaches finally.
Yeah, like yesterday.
Too late. Yeah. Yeah.
It was spring break's over, so it's fine.
Well, not for everybody, I don't think.
That's true.
I don't think that my state has had spring break yet.
I know my kid who's in high school, his spring break is this coming week, I think.
Yeah,
maybe it's the week after. No, I think it's this week. It doesn't matter because he's here, I mean, he's not leaving the house one way or the other. So luckily for us, our whole family is pretty much home-based.
Yeah.
We don't really like people to talk to in person. But, my wife and my kid are now here. Which, has affected me a bit more than I thought it would, since I've been home, working from home for years now. But it's still kind of got me a little off kilter. How are you guys doing?
Okay.
You're out of toilet yet?
Dude, the toilet paper situation, I
don't get
can't. I mean, I guess in a way I understand, because people are like, if we end up quarantined, we're not going to be able to go and get more. So we need to make sure that we have it. But it's friggin' insane.
It is.
I wonder if bidet sales have gone up. And I thought about you, Andy. It was like, well, at least you can wash your ass easily.
That's right, because I have a bidet.
Yeah.
So,
really?
I do, yes.
I still haven't tried it. I've been to your house twice. I've stayed with you twice, and I still haven't tried it.
And you haven't tried it?
Oh,
What?
it kind of scares me. I'm like, how am I going to dry my ass off? And, I don't want to use your towels.
Okay, so
Toilet paper.
was the bidet there when you moved in, or you had a bidet installed?
Well, it's not
a bidet seat.
Yeah.
It's a bidet seat. So
it's not a separate.
No, it's not a separate. No.
Okay.
Right.
So it's just a magical kind of toilet seat.
Well, it's not magical. I mean, the water doesn't get heated, so it really wakes you up if you're half asleep. But
and it pulls the water from the tank? Like, how does it?
The water line that comes in from the main, it's on a splitter. Part of that water goes to the tank, and the other part goes to the little bidet seat. Yeah, your asshole. So it's got a little cleaning nozzle. You flick it and clean it up, and then you
go
flick
front door back.
It does.
I'm picturing those things in the car washes, the long.
No.
But I'm assuming no, not like that.
No. But
self-cleaning
before you do anything with it. Always, every time, because you want to make sure you're not getting in water.
What?
Yeah, I've never been inclined to use a bidet, although I went to the restroom at a Japanese restaurant in New Mexico. And it was this beautiful place at the top of a hill, like the journey of a million steps or something, right? It was very zen.
Wow.
And then I went into the ladies' room, and it was like a legit Japanese toilet.
We had to
And there
split
were
up.
all of these buttons and knobs and
Oh.
levers and whirligigs. And I'm sure I could have shot hot sake up there if I had pushed the right button. But
Now, see that would be something to have at your house, you know?
Hot sake enema.
well, I mean, you know, the Japanese have very sophisticated toilets.
They do,
The
except for the
seats
ones
heat
that
up
are in the floor.
Yeah.
Which
the ones you
when I
squat
lived in Japan, that's what all the bars had. Are the ones that you squat over, and the toilet is actually just it's almost like a urinal laying down. You know, I'll send you I've got a picture somewhere.
No.
Nope.
No.
It's clean. I mean,
No.
it's just.
I've
you
seen
know.
them.
I'm
seen them.
good. I don't need to see your poop trench pictures.
It's not like
I'm
that
good.
at all.
Oh my God. All right, so let's get back on track.
Anytime a picture comes and it's like, this is where I shat. That is, if that's the subject line,
you
I
don't
do
poop
not
in it.
open that email.
No, these are for peeing only. It's not. You don't poop in it. That's why I said it's like a urinal, except. Yeah, there's. I don't remember. I mean, usually I was drunk. I'm fairly certain that there was like a poop one there. My dogs are awake and.
Yes, waking active.
Yes.
They
Hold on
sound-
1 second. I'm going to yell at them.
Oh my
Oh.
goodness.
Okay.
So getting back on track, we're going to be chatting about a book that we all just finished listening to
I finished about 20 minutes ago.
Oh, I finished about a half hour ago.
You guys are hilarious.
I did the last 7.5 hours at 2 times speed, and it was still beautiful.
Well, we're going to be talking about ta-nehisi Coates' The Water Dancer.
I don't think that's how you say his name.
No, it's ta-nehisi.
Ta-nehisi Coates.
That's
Sorry,
what Joe
Ta-Nehisi.
Morton said while narrating the book.
Oh, well, I see. I listened to it 30 minutes ago, and I don't remember what the hell he said. So, there you go. That's how you say it. And let's get this drunken stupor on the road. So, Colette, what you drinking?
Prosecco with bourbon-soaked cherries in it.
Oh, my God. I have to get some of those bourbon-soaked cherries.
I put these in everything.
Well, the last show we did was Rosemary's Baby, right?
It
Was that the? Yeah, I think you're right, because I think we
it
took
was, and you
February
were so drunk.
off.
I was not
great.
so drunk. Come on, man.
Well, I
Dude,
mean,
you were super drunk.
Which
was not.
time?
Oh, please.
Because we did it 3 times. So
That's
The
true.
one that actually mattered, I think. Oh no, I don't think it did. I think it was the first one that we did where there was no sound or something.
Oh my God. So anyway, I enjoyed
don't
that
remember.
drink so much. I'm having another one, but only one. But it's a lot.
one
Mass tumbler of
1 liter.
It's I think bourbon Manhattans are my new favorite drink. Honest to God.
Mm.
Mm.
It
So
looks delicious, but you need those cherries. I saw
Yeah,
a regular cherry in
totally.
I
there.
need the kind of I have regular old maraschino cherries. I need the kind of bourbon soak that Colette has. I'm gonna have to go to once this whole stay at home gets lifted. I'm gonna have to head over to Total Wine.
Well, this
Just order it.
morning I just ordered 4 jars online.
Fuck toilet paper. You've got bourbon-soaked cherries.
You know what's important.
That's right.
That's right. I have water. I have nothing exciting.
Well, you notice I didn't ask you.
Oh. All right, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and read the blurb for
Wow. How do you say that guy's name again?
Ta-Nehisi Coates. So we came upon this book because I had read Between the World and Me, a year or so ago, or sometime last year, and it's a nonfiction book. If I remember correctly, it's like he's writing to his son, and it's essentially what I remember. I'm not looking it up right now, but what I remember is essentially um, him talking about what it's like to be a black man in society, and it was beautifully written. It was very powerful. Um, and I just couldn't stop listening to it, and it really touched me. Um, and so when I saw that this fiction was, this novel was coming out, I was very interested in listening to it, and I picked it up on for a 2-for-1 sale at Audible, and I was like, okay, we don't have anything picked out. This is something like we haven't really done before. Let's read this. And I had never read the blurb. I still have not read the blurb. This will be my first time reading the blurb.
So you just decided to read this book because you liked his other book.
Yeah, and also he writes Black Panther comics. So and I did read a couple, like the first 2 issues of his first Black Panther series. So I was familiar with his work. I like it a lot. I love what he has to say, and I love the way he writes.
Oh yeah, it's poetry.
So
amazing.
And then when so we threw out a few different options when we were talking about what to read, and I really would like to read the other one too about the Native American woman that we also considered, which I cannot remember anything about right now, but like she was like a
lightning.
badass. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, something. But we decided on this one, and then
Hang on, I think I can find it. I'll just scroll back through all of our Trail of Lightning.
Oh, okay. Trail of Lightning, and that looked really good too. But I'm so glad that we picked this one. So let me go ahead and read the blurb, and then we can get into it. All right. Young Hiram Walker was born into bondage. When his mother was sold away, Hiram was robbed of all memory of her, but was gifted with a mysterious power. Years later, when Hiram almost drowns in a river, that same power saves his life. This brush with death births an urgency in Hiram and a daring scheme to escape from the only home he's ever known. So begins an unexpected journey that takes Hiram from the corrupt grandeur of Virginia's proud plantations to desperate guerrilla cells in the wilderness, from the coffin of the Deep South to dangerously utopic moments in the North. Even as he's enlisted in the underground war between slavers and the enslaved, Hiram's resolve to rescue the family he left behind endures. Yeah, there's so much going on in this book that I'm glad that the blurb doesn't give a lot away. This book has been out since it was published last September, so not too long ago. I know we haven't discussed spoilers. I'm not sure. I don't really know that there's anything that I could have known about it that would have made me enjoy it less. So I don't know.
I say I don't mind spoilers. What do you say, call it?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, you're just easy. Have some more prosecco. I like that.
Okay.
You guys are awesome. Okay, so.
All right. May I start?
You may, of course.
I got to get my words in before apparently I get so drunk that I'm incoherent, y'all.
Only if you start grabbing the bottle and a shot glass and slamming it back.
Yeah, that happened, and that was crazy.
What? I
think
not.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that last episode because, or at least go to the end so I can see if.
I say no, don't do it. Okay.
All right.
I'm not even certain that that's ultimately the one that ended up
We did 2 on Saturday, and then we did another one on Sunday, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys missed it. It was glorious. It was.
Oh, come on.
It was
man.
glorious
Yeah,
because there's like an
I think it
instant.
was the second one
Yeah.
that we didn't end up
Because
using.
we couldn't do another one because and the second one you guys came through fine and I had no audio whatsoever. And then the final one, it ended up where you guys had stereo sound and I was only in the left ear, which is super annoying. So
It was a hot mess. That's what it was.
which is why we're not doing it live right now. I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
None of us wanted to deal with that again.
it's true.
My liver couldn't take it either.
It was like one of the old shows where, you know, I remember Colette, you'd be like in your Facebook post, see if you can identify the moment all three of us become inebriated. And there usually was like and then I was very impressed by oh my God, did you see that one? It was hilarious. And that's how Andy was on that second recording. It was like, yes, Rosemary made a lot of poor decisions. That fucking bitch was. Anyway,
I just remember there being points where you were trying to communicate something, but nothing was. Your vocabulary was not supporting you on whatever it was.
It was like a Trump speech.
Oh, that's unkind.
That was low, dude. That was low.
Yeah, because I mean, at least she wasn't lying.
There you go. Incoherent, but not lying. Okay.
That's true.
So, the audio, I listened to the book, and I think all of us did. We didn't read it with our eyeballs. And I only had a very, very, very light understanding of what this book was about. I didn't really want to spoil it for myself, so I popped it on. I'm listening to it on the drive into work. And the first thing that struck me was the beauty and the poetry of his words. I was just enthralled. I mean, sometimes I had to stop and back it up just because I was so amazed at the word combinations that I missed the story. So I had to push it back again and listen a couple of times. I've never heard words and that's not poetry sound like poetry and carry a story. That for me was one of the big things about his writing. I was just not prepared, honestly.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It's just, you know, the first few paragraphs, I just had to kind of sit back and go, wow, you know, we don't read a lot of books that are this
well
beautiful.
Written.
Yeah, huh? Yeah,
well
exactly.
Written,
yeah, it was, you know, and to make it even better, I think that Joe Morton, who's the narrator, did a fantastic job. I mean, the tone of his voice, the timbre of his voice, everything just was. He's got this deep, smooth voice that, and you know, there are some parts when he would sing and do, you know, these slave songs, and it added so much. This is one of those books that I'm sure that the text, the paperback or the ebook, whatever, is beautiful to read. But this is one of those books where having a great narrator just elevated the experience so much. Yep. It was just fantastic. And I don't know if you guys know who Joe Morton is, but he was in the Terminator movies. He was the guy that worked for at least the first one. He's the guy with the big mole thing on his face, because that's the only way I remember him. He's got the big mole thing on his face, and he worked for, what was it, Cinedyne or whatever. He worked for them.
That's the guy that blew himself up in the end.
Yeah.
Oh, I know who he is. That was
Yeah.
him?
doing the traditional, the black man sacrifices himself for the sake of all the white people, which happens so much in movies.
Yeah.
And which we never appreciate.
We don't ever,
No.
ever. Well, I appreciated his
He did a great
his
job.
narration. Oh my God, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the,
it was funny when you said it, and I don't know if you know who Joe Morton is. And the first thing that popped into my head was, is he the subject of the sentence? And what the predicate says he does?
what?
That's from Schoolhouse Rock. Mr.
Oh my
Morton.
God.
Mr. Morton is
Oh.
the subject of the sentence. And what the predicate says he does.
Gotcha. Oh, now I can visualize that now in my head.
Yeah.
Boy, I
this
bet
is
you wish you had better
obviously-
cherries. Lovely. So, okay, so
Wait. I'll tell you what. Colette, you send me one of those jars of cherries. I'll send you some toilet paper.
Wow.
I was going to volunteer to send you some toilet paper for nothing, but clearly I'm not taking advantage of the situation.
Well, so Laura was successful. She returned from the hunt this morning, and she was successful in having acquired like a 12-pack of some random hobo Fred's toilet paper, like generic, God knows what it's made out of, kind of a
Single-ply
thing.
sandpaper?
Probably, but you know, it's something.
We've
It's
moved
something.
to bamboo toilet paper and paper towels, which apparently nobody else wants, and I can order freely from
Wow.
Grove. Yeah, so it's not quite as soft as like a Charmin or Cottonelle or something like that, but it also doesn't contribute to trees being cut down because bamboo grows.
It's grass. And it
Yes.
grows crazy.
Yeah, so.
And it's still alive when you're using it, from what I understand.
Oh, now I'm going to hear little bamboo things screaming as I. Shut up! Do your job!
It's just a shitty job we have.
Literally, this is the shittiest job I've ever had.
Oh,
See,
Okay,
that's
so-
like right out of an episode of the Flintstones, right?
it is. Oh, God.
Wah, wah, wah.
And the pelican, like,
Yes. That
yeah.
is being used as a toilet or whatever it is
That's
that he
awful.
has to do.
well, at least it's not a rag on a stick like the Romans used.
That's next month.
Yeah, remember, we're just a weekend.
Yeah, we're just starting. We're just starting.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
so back to the book.
Right.
How does it
That-
start? I don't remember. It starts with him
starts
showing up
with-
at Thena's, right?
I thought that it started with him and
Right.
the
And his
accident,
brother.
And the brother, the half
right? So
Yeah.
so Hiram Walker, which sounds like a brand of schnapps.
Oh, doesn't it though?
I know. I couldn't stop thinking of like a bourbon or some kind of alcohol. So, but it's not. He's not. He's a person.
Right. He is a biracial enslaved person. His father was the plantation owner and his mother was sold and sent somewhere. And so he basically is tasked with looking out for his half brother, who is the full white son of the plantation owner and therefore the heir to everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because Hiram wouldn't be entitled to anything.
Oh no. And
But
we
of
should
course-
mention it's pre Civil War is what the time period we're talking about.
Yeah.
So the half brother's name is Maynard, and he is a bit of a tool,
Just a bit.
right?
He's not like a malicious asshole or anything, but he's he's not super classy. He acts more like what did they call him? A low white instead of quality. I learned so many terms.
Yeah, me too.
Like calling slaves the tasked.
Yeah,
I'd never heard
new.
that before. That
Either.
was something I hadn't. Is that? I'm assuming that's legit. That was.
I don't know, because I've not heard it anywhere else. So
Yeah.
I'm not 100% certain that it's not something that the author came up with.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe if somebody else knows, they can post in the comments. But I mean, I got the impression that Maynard was more just carefree and didn't want to deal with the responsibility of things. He wanted to drink and fight and get with, the
gamble,
prostitutes and gamble,
mess
and
around,
just like but I mean, I didn't get the impression like he wasn't beating people, he wasn't beating slaves, he wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
he wasn't the worst of the low whites,
right? I mean, on the spectrum, he was a worthless, kind of piece of shit, but he wasn't a violent, vindictive asshole. His biggest thing seemed to be proving to the rest of the quality whites that he belonged in the same realm as they did, and nobody thought that he did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, it felt a little Trumpy to me, Maynard.
Oh, right? I didn't get that impression. Okay.
I mean, he's kind of a loudmouth, brash, braggart, right? He's perpetually trying to be accepted by the upper class that, see what you're saying. From a financial perspective, he would belong to the upper class, but they never accept him because of the kind of person that he is. Right. And so he is just perpetually trying to ingratiate himself and perpetually failing. Although he does have an upper class fiance who seems to genuinely love him inexplicably.
Yeah. I didn't even in the beginning, I didn't really get the impression that she was in love with him, more that I actually saw her more. I mean, she had her own legacy, I guess, or she had her own access to wealth. Her parents were dead. She had her own plantation because there were no other heirs. I didn't really get the impression that she loved him, more that it was better than what it could have been. I guess maybe he was, not as awful as some other marriage. I got the impression, I think, that she was more interested in Lockless than in Maynard. Lockless was the name of the plantation where Hiram lived. But I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe she did. I mean, we learned later on more about that relationship. But
I mean, she does seem to genuinely be mourning him when. So the accident happens. The carriage falls off the bridge, and Maynard drowns. And you get a sense because he was too stupid and lazy to bother to learn how to swim.
that was the impression I got. Yeah.
Yep.
And Hiram has this experience, right, where he thinks he's having some kind of a hallucination, and he sees this woman and a mist, and then he wakes up in somebody's bed.
Yep.
And Maynard is dead.
And that's a hell of a way to open a book.
Yeah, it really was. I was like, oh, wow, okay. So immediately we're drawn into the action right away. We know that there's something going on with Hiram. We don't know what. And then things we go kind of back and forth a bit. but not too much. I mean, I think we go back, and doesn't it pretty much stay chronological after that, where he's
Yeah.
motherless? We learn all about
Yeah.
Hiram and how he came to be the driver of the coach
Yep.
when his brother died. Um, and one of the things that I found very interesting was that Hiram always referred to Maynard as his brother, and to the plantation owner, Mr. Walker, as his father. And
But he only called him Sir.
right.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
only ever called him Sir, but there was, I don't know, there was so much just interesting familial and friend dynamics in the book that like like it was so obvious. I mean, his father. Okay, so one of the things, so we go. Okay, I'm sorry, Andy. Did you want to say something?
See, this is why you guys accuse me of losing it, because I have to hurry up and inject something, and then I go slower. So okay. Um, and after the intense opening scene in the book, when it goes back to when Hiram was very young, and it talks about the task and what life was like, and how he had this really special gift of being. He had a um, is it photogenic memory?
Photographic.
No, it's not photographic. That's taking a picture. Photo. What is it?
It's a
Photogenic
photographic
memory.
memory.
Okay. Photographic memory. And that he could just like remember everything. It was absolutely amazing. And he was able to remember songs and stories, and I think that was a great way to really show you how unique and special Hiram was, and make you really want to continue to learn more about him, so that the first part, the very beginning opening of the book, made sense, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't have enough about this guy to understand what the hell that scene was about. So I found it fascinating about how he was befriended by this older woman, and they formed this kind of interesting friendship, if you will. Um, Not without its own pitfalls later in the story, but yeah, I
Thena.
think Thena,
Thena.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Thena. And it's his ability to have perfect recall that propels this story forward and puts him in the light of others that make a difference in his life.
Yeah. And so his father would have him come and entertain at gatherings of the quality, and they would essentially do like parlor tricks, where he would have somebody draw a card and he would recite what was on the card and all of that. And shortly after that, his father, who knows that he's a smart kid and is and this is one of the weird things, I think. I don't know, maybe weird isn't the right word, but Hiram's father sees a future for Hiram at the plantation at a higher level. Like, he knows that Maynard is not particularly smart, and he also doesn't really have what it takes. He's impetuous. He doesn't really have what it takes to be the master of a plantation. So he, in order to kind of give Hiram a bit more education, he brings in, or he allows him to spend time with Maynard's tutor, Mr. Fields. And Mr. Fields, he instructs him, he teaches him, but he never warms up to him at all. Um, and I loved how later in the book they develop. Hiram says, really, he was my only friend later on. Um, so Thena she is, so Hiram shows up at her door when his mom doesn't come home, and shows up at Thena's door with his ration of food. And she is not a warm, cuddly woman. She has been hurt.
She used to be, right, but
right.
She's been hurt.
Her man was he killed, or was he just taken away?
No,
Big Joe.
he succumbed to some fever.
Okay,
Right,
and he was a big dude on
in
plantation.
charge of the fields.
Yeah. Her children were taken, and she's just crushed. She's had her spirit is just totally crushed.
So she had like what, 6 or 8 kids?
I think like 6, something like that. I think
she had a few.
She names them all toward the end of the book, and there were I think like 6 kids, and they kind of they're broken together. There's no particular warmth between them, no matter how much Hiram wants there to be. She takes care of him. He knows that she has an affection of some sort for him, but she's not affectionate in that way. They get pulled up to the big house. They were working in the fields, and Hiram's father wants Hiram in the house now. And because Thena is his caretaker, she moves up with him, and she tells him as they're getting ready to go up, "I know you think you want this, but be careful what you wish for, because now we are under their eye." And out here we have not freedom, but we are able to do some things within our own community. Up there, we're fucked. So
yeah, and she's like, these people are your family, but they are not your family.
Exactly. I think, and I believe there are comments like that throughout the book, because I feel like Hiram, and maybe I was reading this incorrectly, but I know that he felt for some time that he worked hard, and he for the betterment of Lockless. Like, he felt that even though he knew he was not the heir of Lockless, he still felt some sort of connection to the Walker family, and going on about the progenitor and all of this, and he ends up in one of his, I don't know what you would call it, like not really a trance type thing, but he ends up back at the beginning of Lockless and sees the head of the family, the one that started it all, and it was just I can't imagine how conflicting that must be to to know that this man raped your mom, no matter what feelings he may believe he had for her. She certainly did not want to have sex with him or have his child, but to know that you're the product of that and still feel some sort of pull toward that part of your family. It's just so much of it. I think one of the beautiful things about this book is that it puts you, the reader, in that place and time so well, and there's not graphic violence too much. There is some, but this isn't like it's not a sensationalized portrayal of slavery. It's just this is what it was, and this is how we lived. so the book is broken down into 3 parts. The first part is, if I remember correctly, his background, and the second part is discovering the underground and doing work with the underground, and then the final part is he's called back to Virginia, to his father's plantation. And
What?
that my son should be wandering by.
Oh.
Goodbye. They're going out for a driving lesson.
Oh my God.
It's a perfect time. There's nobody on the roads.
Yeah, but that's got to be a level of autonomy that you may not necessarily be prepared for.
It's 16 in May.
Yeah,
God.
just one of those milestones.
Yeah, they're happening all the time now. I just don't even think about it. I can't think about it. Anyway, I don't want to talk anymore. You guys talk. But
Oh.
so okay, so
Colin
So
and I are
Hiram-
like, wait, we're still drinking. We're listening. Go ahead.
Okay, so Hiram meets a woman called Sophia, who he believes that he falls in love with. And as you go on, he's like, I'm not really sure that I am in love with her. I might just be in love with the idea of being in love. I don't really know. But they decide that they're going to run. And there's a freeman named Georgie who Hiram has heard. Everybody supposedly knows that Georgie is involved with the underground and at least knows of ways to spirit people away. Georgie, for whatever good it does, tries to tell Hiram several times, I'm not going to help you.
Yeah, actually,
You
that was the
don't
best thing
want
he ever
to
tried
do
to
it.
do.
Yeah. I mean, and so he does try to dissuade Hiram. He's like, man, you got it. You don't have it perfect, but you got it easy compared to everybody else. We know who your daddy is. You're up there in the big house, and you just take care of that, shithead brother of yours. You got nothing. You got nothing to complain about comparatively. So and he kept telling him, you find a woman and you find your happiness. You make your happiness. Do your thing, but I'm not going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, Hiram wears him down and is like, I'm going anyway. Me and Sophia, we're going. And I love Sophia purely for the fact that she's like, and no man ever done nothing for me. I will never belong to another man. I had my husband. I was taken from him. I got Hiram's uncle, Nathaniel, had a thing for Sophia, and so that made it even worse because Hiram was not only stealing from, stealing his father's property. Oh no, he was not only stealing the property of his uncle, he was stealing his girlfriend, essentially. I mean, he really had a thing for Sophia. And Sophia was like, I'm gone whether you are or not. And Hiram's like, okay. So he goes to Georgie and says, I'm gonna do it anyway. Georgie says, fine, meet me here at this place and time. And Georgie set him up.
Mm-hmm.
And while the last time that Georgie and Hiram spoke, when Georgie finally relented and said, fine, I'll help you, there was another. So the woman, what was her name? Camille, not Camille.
Corinne.
Corinne. So Corinne Quinn was the woman who was supposed to marry Maynard, the brother.
The simple brother.
The simple brother. She was supposed to marry him. One of her right-hand man, slave guy, his name was Hawkins. And Hawkins has a sister, Amy. I think that was his sister. And they happened to see Hiram coming back from talking to Georgie. And Hiram was a little paranoid about this. I just wanted to bring that up because it'll come up later. And Hiram was actually the person who found Hawkins was actually the person who found Hiram after the tragedy in the river, the Goose River, where Maynard drowned.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how he kind of comes into it. He's kind of always just there. And Hiram's really suspicious about this guy. He doesn't know what to think about him.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so Georgie sets him up, and he and Sophia get caught. Sophia's taken away. We don't know what the hell happened with her. Hiram is taken. At this point, we don't know what happened to her. We follow Hiram as he is taken and thrown in a pit, and he's in jail for a while and beaten up, and then he's taken. Somebody comes and gets him. Some low quality white dude comes and gets him, and starts taking him. Leaves him in a pit, weakens him up, takes him out and into a field, into the woods, and there are several black men lined up and a bunch of white dudes, and they start playing the most dangerous game, right? Where essentially they send these guys out. They say, you can make it till daylight, you can have your freedom. If not, they're going to do whatever they're going to do with you. And this goes on and on for a month, something like that.
I think at least. Yes.
Yeah, he's living in this dark, cold pit in the ground, given just enough food to keep him alive, but never quench his hunger. Just enough water to keep him alive, but never quench his thirst. He's weak, and this just continues to go on and on. And then I don't remember exactly what happens next, but this is where all this shit really starts picking up. So one of you take over.
Well, so part of his whole photographic memory is that he is able to start remembering, right, the geography of it.
Right.
And the movements of the hunters.
Right. So I believe what ends up happening is on one of the hunts, he ends up breaking his ankle. And at that point, doesn't it trigger another episode where he sees the mist and has sort of a vision, and then he wakes up and he's in Corinne's bed. Right?
Yeah, I think that's how it went, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? And then at that point, I think that's where he learns that she purchased him. Right?
Yeah, she talked her. His father was so upset at the betrayal of him running that Corinne talked him into transferring him over to her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And then so he is on her property, right? Her plantation. And so at that point, that's when we learn that she is part of the underground, and her plantation is a hub for the underground, and all of these people who work for her are part of it. And there are agents who work in the field whose responsibility it is to go out and make contact with other enslaved people to try and liberate them. And then there are house agents, and they're involved in sort of the espionage quality of forging papers and getting people relocated and those kinds of things. And ultimately, that's what Hiram ends up being, a house agent working for this woman who I don't think he ever had an inkling that she was involved in anything like that.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
She was
But now
good.
you understand why, her, uh,
What was his
her,
name?
yeah,
Hawkins.
why
Hawkins.
Hawkins was always just seemed to be there, right?
Yeah.
Because he's
Mm-hmm.
actually a member of the Underground Railroad, and they have an inkling that he has this ability, which they call conduction,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's this supposedly this other person who works with the Underground Railroad named Moses. Now, anybody who is remotely
Yeah.
familiar with Harriet Tubman knows that that's what they used to call her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, I guess there had been some talk that she had some sort of abilities, right?
Right, like Hiram, but bigger scale.
Well, I mean, in this book, they turn it into that. But I mean, like, legit, Harriet Tubman there were rumors that she had abilities.
Oh, I don't know.
Really? Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I get the sense that the author took that knowledge. Like, did either of you guys see the movie Harriet?
No, but I bought it today because I really I want to watch it tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they touch on that in that film as
Okay.
well. Right? Because I mean, she just has these uncanny abilities. In the film, they make it seem like she hears God,
Oh,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And that so God is directing her, and that's how she always manages to find her way to ford the path and not get apprehended.
oh wow.
Right. So it's very kind of similar concept that Harriet Tubman has this sort of extra sensory ability. In this story, it's the conduction ability that you could tap into some kind of previous memory and feeling, and as long as there's water involved, that you could actually teleport yourself to where you need to be in space and in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the suggestion in this novel is the reason that Harriet Tubman was so successful and was able to bring all these people to freedom was because she was able to teleport them in large groups using conduction. And then that's when Hiram kind of realizes that's what he has, and I guess that's what his grandmother had.
Yeah. Hmm.
And now he just has to sort of try and figure out how to control it. Because at
Right.
this point, it just happens in times of like tremendous,
Stress.
Yeah.
right, right,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. It, the just the whole his whole experience is, so they take him, he goes from uh, so it turns out that his whole experience of being in the pit and the running through the woods trying to avoid these guys, it was all a setup. It was a training. It was Corrine uh, and Hawkins training him. He had no idea, and they had, because Hawkins had seen um, the what happened when the carriage went off the bridge and Maynard died, and essentially Hiram was lifted out of the goose and laid out on the shore. He saw that, so he knew there was something really special about this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they felt like he was perfect for the underground. Um, so Hiram never really had a choice.
Not really.
They took him, they put him through all of this hell, uh, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, you're being trained." Come to find out, when they when they told him he was going to be a house agent, and they brought him all these documents, and you know, I thought this was really interesting how they told him, you know, it's not just forging a signature, and they would bring all these documents, and he would get to know the person that he was going to be pretending to be in the forgery. I thought that was so interesting to make it more legitimate, to make it actually sound like that person. I thought that was really interesting. And then come to find out, Mr. Fields is also a member of the underground, and his name is something, Mrs. something Bland.
Oh yeah, what the hell was his first name?
It's
Makasha. What the hell was his name?
Yeah, Makasha
Bland.
Makasha Bland, and they got to be friends, and it was you know, and that was something else that I really enjoyed, was hearing his story on how he got involved. And I don't remember it right now, but I remember when he was doing it, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I don't know if you guys remember.
And he had such a bad end.
He did have a bad end, but I think that I think it's important that at least a few people did.
Well, of
because
course,
otherwise, you know, just in general, I loved this book, and it's definitely one that I'll read again. I feel like there's probably so much that I still missed.
Oh yeah, it definitely has re-listen or reread ability for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But I don't know if I don't know. I think for me that first time was enough. Like, it was a lot to absorb. It was, like I said, poetry. The words were just poetry. But I think it would lessen the impact if I read it more. You know what I mean? Like, if I, like, you know, I always have stories I reread at least every year. I don't think I'd do that with this one. I think that first time was the best time, then leave it.
Well, so did either of you feel like there was a strange dichotomy between the almost lyrical voice of the narrator, right, who is supposed to be Hiram, and then Hiram?
Well, I mean, so when Hiram speaks, he definitely speaks in the slave vernacular more so, but even then he still sounded more educated, which I think fits, because he was educated. He read a lot.
Right. At some point he was educated, and I think that I was just assuming, all right, well, at some point this guy is going to obviously become well-read and turn into the person who is narrating this, because it, you know,
but he was well-read, as I think they took him in. He started reading when he was like 11, right? Something like that.
Yeah, he was. But I see Colette's point. The story is told in such a beautiful way, but yet the conversation and the way he expresses himself in conversations isn't like that. So there was
he's telling the story many, many years later.
Right.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So he would, I think, the narrator. Maybe I misunderstand what you're saying, but the narrator.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, so this was told. He's narrating it many years after it happened, which means he would have, I'm assuming, gone back up north, read more, become more involved in politics, which I think that's, I mean.
Well, when would he go back up north? Because don't they end up settling in, don't they go back to Virginia? And
well, they do, but then they.
Yeah, that doesn't preclude him from traveling, though.
I mean,
I think that's the supposition. It doesn't preclude him from he's being a hub at the plantation he was raised at, but he could still, you know, go visit Philadelphia or wherever the hell he wanted to go.
Well, I forgot that he does become that. Yeah.
So I mean, he's basically, he's running
Lockless and the other one.
And he is still technically enslaved as far as everyone knows. It's not like he's free to travel.
Well, I guess I was thinking more of after slavery was over.
Yeah, how long did the Civil War last?
Many years.
But we don't know how long it's been. We don't have any idea what the.
I don't think I
don't.
ever
We
really
never
had a
know what
sense
year
for
it
what
is.
year it is.
No.
So,
Well, we know it's pre-Civil War, but
Right,
he's
but
in
that's
what
it.
his early 20s, right? When he
That's
decides to run the first time, wasn't he in his early 20s?
I think he was like 19 or 20, something like that. Maybe.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out the timeline. So maybe
And
his
he
education
also-
got, maybe in his late 30s, early 40s.
When he meets Harriet Tubman, he says that she's close to his age. And we know that she continued on until she was she was pretty old. So this has to be quite a while. But I mean, he's also got plenty of time to read. He's got full access to everything.
The library and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I did notice that too. There was definitely a difference in his speech compared to the narrator.
Right.
But we didn't really hear him. We didn't really get a lot of dialogue from Hiram either. Not that matters, but that just popped into my head that we really didn't get a lot of.
Yeah, I think it's just that. So there's a real disparity between the dialogue from the main character and the main character who is narrating it, obviously much, much later. And since we don't really get a sense we get a sense for how he becomes a member of the Underground Railroad, right? And we get a sense for how he ends up at the end of the book, but obviously there's a lot more that takes place after that. We don't really get a sense for what ultimately turns him into the person who becomes the narrator.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's what it is for me.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
There wasn't a complete journey from the person at the beginning of the book to the narrator.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's fair. Yeah.
That piece is missing.
Yeah.
And maybe there will be a sequel, but I doubt it.
I wouldn't think there would be, but you could, but I think it's good just where it ended.
I mean, it could take place during the Civil War, since we don't really have a sense for when this takes place in relation to,
I think I was reading some article and they talked about it was pre-Civil War. I think that's the only reason why I popped off with that.
I don't even remember them talking about who is president.
No, I
there's
don't recall.
There's nothing really that gives you a sense for
the dates. No,
for pretty much when this is.
Right.
So it could have been 30 years before the Civil War for all.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
which I'm sure was done on purpose. Honestly.
I would think so. I mean, that seems like it would have to be a conscious choice because it would be
maybe to keep the politics out of it.
Maybe because it really isn't about that outside of the issue of slavery.
Yeah.
Well, plus, I would imagine that most enslaved people may not have known much about what was going on politically. And then when you think about things like the Emancipation Proclamation and how long in between the actual
Jesus
release the hounds.
Yeah, right. Wow.
How long between the actual Emancipation Proclamation and the news filtering down to the southern states? How much of a gap was there? People were still enslaved after the Emancipation Proclamation.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So it's not like news traveled well.
Yeah. But I loved it. I thought it was great.
It was very good. I would definitely recommend it.
Yes, and I know Carol is reading it also.
Oh, cool.
And she's like, and so when I hadn't even started the book yet, and I get a text from Andy asking if I had started, and she just says, "Wow, And I'm thinking, okay, that wow could be going one way or another because I'm not necessarily known for giving recommendations that Andy loves. So I had to
That's
say,
true.
it's true. I had to
And
say,
I think it's fair to say that whatever we discuss in this particular forum is not usually, it's all probably also not known as being, wow,
yeah,
It's true.
that was awesome. It's
yeah.
usually we get together and we're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah. You're
The hell
absolutely
was
right.
that? Whose fault is this?
I'll
Yeah.
never get that time back.
Who recommended this piece of shit?
Exactly.
God.
Exactly.
And really it could be any of us because
It
I
could
think at
be.
this point we have all probably picked equal numbers of pieces of crap.
I
That's
think
true.
so. We've been doing this a long time, so
I
yeah.
know.
In September it'll be 10 years. So
Isn't
we've
that
been doing
amazing?
this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It is. It's crazy. Yeah.
Mm.
So I had to ask. I was like, "Is that a good wow or a
Yeah.
bad wow?" She's like, "Oh, it's good wow, good wow."
Oh, it was a good wow. I was like bowled over not long after I started listening to it.
And that doesn't happen very often. So I'm glad
No.
we picked something kind of sight unseen, and it turned into a great read. And this is one of the longer books that we've done. This was the hardback, the hardcover is just over 400 pages.
Oh, wow.
So this is
Once I started listening to it, it was hard to put down, honestly.
Yeah, I mean the audiobook, I mean it's how many hours is it? I mean I know it's
it
double
was either
digits.
14 or 17.
Yeah, I think it's like
14.
14 hours and some change. So I mean
Yeah.
it was no small.
It wasn't, but it yeah, and like I could have had plenty of time to read this without jamming through it today, but with all the rest of life happening, I spent more time with the newspaper. I spent more time on Netflix. You know.
Well, I mean I did find it challenging to focus on this book because of just the general I mean I keep telling Laura that we live in 28 days later now.
Yeah.
So just the general chaos of living in a lockdown pandemic world where it's just a matter of time before all of us will know somebody who is impacted by this virus or and the economic things that will come with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's
That's
already.
So, when you're looking for escapism,
Yeah, this is not necessarily the
Hey!
story to read.
pre-Civil War slavery, let's do this.
Yeah. That makes
Yeah.
sense. It does.
Yeah.
So maybe we shoot for something.
Completely fluffy and
Well, what about, okay, so I'm just going to throw this out.
yeah.
Several of my friends have read Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. And
I love that show on Netflix.
Right?
Was it Amazon or Netflix?
Yeah,
Oh my God, so much fun.
We watched that this last week.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find a way to watch it, Colette, you should.
Well, what is it on Netflix or?
No, it's on Amazon. So, but I know.
Amazon is going to take over the world because toilet paper and because now they have driven every brick and mortar store out of business. So I find it,
Which reminds me of a book that I read not that long ago
funny.
called The Warehouse, which not right now, but when things are not terrible, we should read.
One of my coworkers was reading that, and she was telling
And it's
me about
Amazon. That's exactly what it is. It's Amazon takes over the world, and it's kind of terrifying in a lot of ways, but also it was pretty good. So I'm just going to talk through the dogs. I'm going to attempt to talk through the dogs. So
I'm hoping that they don't have like a Girl Scout pinned down there.
No,
was
they're
just trying to sell cookies.
they're up in the bay window in the living room, barking at anybody who dares to walk by, because this is their street. How dare they?
How dare they?
So I've tried to read Good Omens. I have tried the ebook, picked up a paperback, bought the audiobook, have never been able to get more than a few pages in any format.
A few pages, like that's particularly
like I just couldn't. I don't. It may have been the moods that I've been in, but I feel like now after watching the show and enjoying the show so much, that I feel like I'm ready, and it's funny. There's loads of humor in it. Humor, I think that we can all appreciate, especially Andy, if you loved the show, if you thought that.
Oh my God, it was so much fun.
So how many seasons are there of the show?
Oh, it's just the one. It just covers the book. That's all. It's just
how many episodes is it? Like 4, 5,
6, I think.
6.
I think there
it's
were
not
6.
super long.
No. But maybe we should give that a shot. I think there could be a lot of fun stuff to talk about. It's about the bringing on of Armageddon.
Yeah, it's good. And
so
really
Armageddon fun, yay!
Yeah, but it's humorous. It's fun. So,
it is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So unless you guys come up with something else, that would be my pick. Just because I think it would be a blast to talk about with you guys. But if you have some other more lighthearted, this is the lighthearted apocalypse book. But if you have something else that is more lighthearted.
Well, lighthearted kind of throws my ideas of the zombie apocalypse out. Damn it.
Which again is not, really maybe where we want to go. Well, why don't we talk about it?
Feels a little close to home.
Yeah, right.
So I keep thinking of that scene in 28 Days Later where they walk into the church. Like, did you guys see the movie?
I don't remember. I saw it not that long
ago. Theater. That's how long it's been for me.
Right. So the dude wakes up in the hospital and everything. People are gone. Everything is disheveled. He meets up with a couple other seemingly normal humans, and they walk into the church, and they're like, "Hello? Is anybody here?" And like that's where they first encounter the remarkably fast-moving zombies.
I hate fast-moving zombies.
It's just like they're like, and then.
How'd that go? Do it again.
They're on them. And it's like, you're used to like the slow shambling or like you.
Right.
Of course you're going to leave them behind. But these are like the sprinting in your face superpower zombies. And so.
That's one of the reasons I like that Dawn of the Dead remake so much. They were super fast too.
The what ones?
The Dawn of the Dead remake.
Oh, yeah.
With Ving Rhames. Those fuckers were fast, too.
All right, so we're really over time.
Oh, holy crap.
Well, it was a long book.
It was a long book. And we did talk about the pandemic.
We did.
Quite a bit in the beginning. So we're going to go ahead and upload this onto Facebook, or not Facebook, Jesus Christ, onto YouTube. We are no longer posting on making audio versions. We're done with that.
We're done.
We're done. This is a fucking pandemic, people. We are done. We are going to do this once. We're uploading it, and that's it. What?
But we know we're going to survive, so please subscribe and tap this video.
Right. I meant to say all of that. Maybe we do a giveaway of a roll of toilet paper. So if you have an idea
possible for me to win?
It is. It's just for you.
All right. I
just
would like to be
time.
entered.
I told you how you could win some toilet paper.
Yeah. So if we'll go tentatively with Good Omens, if somebody can come up with a better idea or something that excites us a bit more, post it in the comments on this episode on YouTube, and We'll send you a roll of toilet paper. Oh, which reminds me, Carol wants a coffee mug, a cocktail hour coffee mug instead of a fruit basket. So,
All right, I'll make that happen. Send me the info.
well, all right.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching, and tell your friends. Seriously, subscribe, hit like, and we'll see you on the next show.
Bye, everybody.